All right. Welcome to, I think this is our third edition of Brave Indigenous Conversations with Deadly Kookoms and Aunties. My name is Joan Jack, and I'm really, really happy you're listening whenever you are, wherever you are, and however you're doing that. We broadcast live on YouTube, um, Twitter, and LinkedIn right now because I'm locked out of Facebook. Ugh. Anyway, and I'm in kind of like I'm doing okay, but it's rough. And then you can also find our show on Spotify by just searching Brave Indigenous Conversations with Joan Jack. Today we have with us our panel, our regular panel, Roxanne Shuttleworth, Charm, aka Dr. B, um, Becky Big Canoe, and we have our first guest with us who's going to introduce herself right after I read the invitation to a brave space. An invitation to a brave space. Together we will create brave space because there is no such thing as a safe space. We exist in a real world. We all carry scars and we have all caused wounds. In this space, we seek to turn down the volume of the outside world. We amplify voices that fight to be heard elsewhere. We call each other to more truth and love. We have the right to start somewhere and continue to grow. We have the responsibility to examine what we think we know. We will not be perfect. It will not always be what we wish it to be, but it will be our brave space together, and we will work on it side by side. And that was written by Mickey Scott B. Jones, who was a Black woman who's gone to the spirit world. And she, I forget right now, but she created something for Black girls that still exists today. All right. So our intention when Roxanne contacted me with the idea of doing this with my podcast, which is Brave Indigenous Conversation, she said, "You need to have Brave Indigenous Conversations with Deadly Cookums and Aunties." I was like, "Oh my God, do we ever?" What a great idea. And so I immediately started contacting different Deadly Cookums and Aunties that I knew. And the women you see here this morning are those who've stepped up. And Roxanne also said, "You've watched The View, haven't you?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And I was like, "We need like an Indigenous view." And I was like, "Okay, bring it on." So this is our version of an Indigenous view. And our guest has disappeared. So I'll keep talking. Oh, she's waving, but I'm going to introduce you now, Lonnie. So we're live. Maybe someday, if I ever generate any revenue from my podcast or win the lottery or something, we'll record and edit and do it the way that all the other podcasts do. But right now, all I can afford is this. And so we're live. It's raw. And what you see and what you hear is what you get. All right. So, Lonnie Jack. I'd like you to come off mute, and I'm going to mute myself. And how we do things in the Indigenous way is it's like we're in a circle, and a sharing circle, let's say, and each person in a sharing circle speaks for as long as they want to speak about whatever they want to speak. It's your clearing. This space is yours. So we always start our sharing circle, or participate in a sharing circle by introducing ourselves. I don't introduce you. You introduce yourself. And I'm going to mute myself now.
Okay. Well, hello, everybody. My name is Lonnie Jack, and I am Joan Jack's eldest daughter, and probably the most entrepreneurial. As you'll see in my title, it says serial entrepreneur because I love business and it's in my blood. Thank you so much for having me. It was quite a surprise. I was not expecting to be on the podcast with you ladies today. So that's exciting, but scary, but something that I need to start doing in my life because I feel like I have something that's worth sharing with everybody. So I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to share in this circle today because I had 2 minutes to think about it.
That's the
But
best.
since I wrote serial entrepreneur in my title today, I will talk about the businesses that I have and why I chose those businesses to be my first ventures. Um, So since I was a little girl, I don't have a lot of memories when I was younger, but, I wanted to be a farmer and a cook, and I lived in northern BC, Allen, British Columbia, which is 2 hours south on the BC Yukon border of Whitehorse, Yukon. So to be a farmer there is kind of not a thing, so it was kind of a weird dream that I had as a child, and here I am now 20.
Oh, she got a call. So Lonnie got a black, I see a black thing now if you're listening on Spotify. So this is how it is when it's
Oh,
raw. There she's back. You're back?
no.
You're back. We can hear
Sorry,
you, Lonnie.
guys. Oh,
Oh,
can you
that's
hear me
okay.
now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, no.
We can hear you. Look, can you
Ah,
see us? We can hear you.
I don't
We
know what
can hear
happened
you.
to the sound.
Oh
Thumbs
no.
up if you can hear me. Okay,
Yep.
so I'll just keep talking because I can't I guess you guys aren't talking. Um, so to 2024 now, I met a man in Woodlands, and, that's where his family is from, and we have 3 beautiful children that are 7, 6, and turning 5, and, they're all healthy, and I'm very thankful for that. But in 2020, which was a year after our last child was born, I started Clegger Farms with my partner and, started the dream. So I own Clegger Farms. The name Clegger is Clegr, and it stands for an acronym of Curtis, Lonnie, Elena, Grayson, and Rowan. So that's me and my partner and our children. People are like Kleger, Clegger, Cloger. So it always confuses a lot of people, but we always joke that if we have any more kids, I'm gonna have to name it with an F because it goes on to farms. So for now, we have 3 kids. And, when we first started out in 2020, I ordered 1,000 chickens, and oh my gosh, Curtis was like, "What did you do?" And, that was the beginning, like, I guess the pandemic started fall of 2019, so it hadn't really hit until 2020, and then I'd ordered all these chickens, and I had thought that things were gonna be really great, you know, there's gonna be lots of sales, but then a lot of people started losing their jobs and their income, so we were kinda freaking out a little bit because we had I think it was actually 850, not 1,000, but there was 400 meat birds and 450 layers that we had ordered as chicks. So we had all these chicks getting delivered in April, and, so they came, and we didn't have a barn or anything like that, so I put them in our mechanic farm shop, and we created a coop in there, and the kids and I had a great time. Curtis, not so much, but we were loving it. Um, at that time, that was, like I had all of my pregnancies really close together, so, 2018 no, 2016, 2018, and 2019. So, the first 2 were 15 months apart, and the second and third were 18 months apart. So, at that time, I was having a hard time with postpartum, and, the chickens and the animals in the farm was kind of like, I guess, my drug of choice in a sense, like, looking back at what it was that outlet for me to just escape in a sense because the chickens were so well, my children were as well as my relationship, but, like, they were so reliant on me because I had to be there morning and night and throughout the day to look after all of these animals. So it was very consuming of our life at the time, and, my family participated, my parents came, my brother came, my sister, my brother-in-law, and it was amazing. So that all started, and then we created the farm page, and we were making hay, and we're just starting our grain farm, from pretty much nothing because we're a first generation farm. And yeah, they started laying in the fall and we took orders for the chickens and they all sold, which was amazing. So if you're one of those people who supported our farm during that time and even now, we appreciate you and thank you. Um, my dream is to create food sustainability and security in communities, especially northern communities, because without the roadways to connect for the food, what do people have? And then just to bridge the gap of that and the cost of living and just getting back to our roots, and I know it's kind of colonial in a sense of the way that I'm farming because not all the tools that I have were available back in the day, but, growing with the times, I think it's what we need to do and, retake back our agriculture and put that back into communities, even if it is at a smaller scale because, for example, to feed a family, well, not even a family, but to feed a community in Barrens River, there's 3,000 plus members. I don't know what the actual number is in my home community here in Manitoba, but to have the infrastructure and the actual animals to sustain the community would be absolutely huge, and I wanna work towards that. So that is my end goal, is to provide all the eggs, all the beef, all the pork, all the milk. I wanna make my own butter, and I wanna have it there in communities as well as outside of the community, brought into the community by an Indigenous-owned business and people who are Indigenous and Métis, um, creating that for communities. So that is my end vision, but as Curtis says, "Lonnie, I know you have a big heart, and I know you love your community, but we also really have to pay our bills." So, that's a struggle for me because, like my mom or my grandmother, like, it's kind of a detriment in a sense, but we'd almost give away our last $20 if someone asked for it, if we could make a difference for them. So, trying not to get trying to keep ourself alive as well as create the dream and help other people with that. So, since then, we back to the story,
Just
um,
before you go on, I
ordered
want
tons of chickens, and then we still had the 300 and something layers after we sold our meat birds, and we did an egg subscription for just over 2 years in Winnipeg, Lockport, St. Andrews, Warren, Woodlands, and in the Interlake, and we did a delivery every week, so my mother, Joan, was my top egg delivery lady, which was great, and we delivered a lot of eggs, and Roxanne was one of our customers. We appreciate you. And, that was really great. We didn't make a lot of money on that, but the feeling that I had by providing something that we had raised and, like, knew where it came from, as well as shared all of our experiences online, really meant a lot. And what I had thought was that people enjoyed being part of the process and knowing where their food came from and were able to connect with us or ask us questions or even come out to the farm and be a part of what we are doing and gain that experience or clean their own chicken or pick their own eggs. And that was really great. So then that was the summer and they started laying in the fall. I'm going back here. And then I bought 5 pigs for my birthday. Um, That kind of a thing reminds me of my grandfather. I was at his condo when he was still alive, Johnny Alex, and he's like they were making pie that day, and he's like, "Well, I make the best effing apple pie in the world," and I was kinda like and I laughed, like, it wasn't the ego or the maybe it was the audacity, but I couldn't believe that he was so proud of his own self, you know, and I laughed at him, he's like, "What?" He's like, "Can't wait for anybody else to say it." So since that day, I bought myself Valentine's Day flowers for years because, like, why should I have to wait for someone else to buy me flowers if I want them? So I just did anyway. So I bought myself 5 pigs. And I don't know if you guys know this about pigs, if they're well taken care of and depending on the breed, but each pig has a 3-month gestation period and they can have up to like 20 piglets. So a year went by and then I bred my pigs and each pig had 16 piglets or so. So then I had like 100 pigs and I'm like, I didn't really do the pig math on this and it was a lot because like those sows they were 600 pounds each. So they eat a lot of food. So we were fortunate enough to get on the Loop Resource program. And for those of you that aren't familiar, Loop Resource, and this gets back to food security and stuff, Loop Resource is an organization that partners with grocery stores, specifically wholesale club and superstores. So those stores, if there's any food waste or leftover or broken items, they would put it into these daily piles for farmers and charities to pick up. Um, it's a brand new program and it's all across Canada, but it was amazing because like our pickup day was on Tuesdays. So we went every Tuesday to the Gateway Superstore and we picked up a stock trailer full of food. And then I had volunteers that would go through all that food and put it into the tub. So then we would feed that food to our chickens and our pigs. So it helped reduce food waste as well as extra compost. And then it also cut down our food costs. Like the time investment was probably about 15 hours a week to pick up and sort the food, even with 3 or 4 people helping. But it made a huge difference. And then a quick note on that is that we as consumers, I think, should choose to support businesses who support food waste reduction because, like, for example, when I go to other stores like Costco, um, it just I think all goes in the garbage, and they just, like, crush it all up and throw it out, and, I see a lot of broken items, and they just don't do that, so choosing where we spend our money and doing it more consciously, I think, is something really important. I mean, I'm somewhat guilty in a sense that I shop at Costco a lot just for convenience, as opposed to Superstore, but I do love Superstore for the fact that they participate in those programs. And for example, all of the dog food and animal foods that the store that I went to had in that pile, they sent it to the shelters in Winnipeg and the area, and all of the majority of the bakery items that were still excuse me, still available for consumption. I believe they sent them down to Winnipeg Harvest, which was amazing, and I
Wow.
wasn't sad that I didn't have it because to me, like, I love animals, but, like, humans are, priority in a sense, like, I really love that for that program. So then we had the pigs, and then we had, like, almost 100 pigs, and, we processed and sold a lot of the pigs, that was great, and then I was down to my last 4 pigs this last April, so April 2023, then we processed those, and that kind of put a and then we had goats, we have guinea fowl, we have geese, we have ducks, and, land guardian dogs we adopted, so it was amazing, and then yeah, it came to a close April 2023, but throughout that time from February 17th, 2020 to April 2023, we had so many guests out at the farm, we had tons of kids, youth, um, we flooded really bad in 2021 on the farm, like, our whole farm was underwater, which was awful, but I'm really stuffed up today. We were starting the land learning with Lonnie, which was having young people and even adults come out to participate on the farm. Um, we collected dry fallen wood, we cooked on the fire, we fed the animals, everybody picked their own eggs. And so we were just starting that, reconnecting back outside with the children with agriculture and youth. And we had, oh,
Can you hear me?
I
Can
can't
you
hear you.
hear? Oh, well, you need
Actually,
to fix that.
I don't know
Yeah,
what's
you
going
need
on
to
here.
try to fix that. Yeah, you need to try to fix that because there's so many things as the facilitator, I want to interact with you to enrich your story. Can you hear me now? You are my sunshine, my only sunshine. You make me happy when skies are gray. You'll never know, dear, how much I love you. How about you? Because I'm going to want you to hear the other panelists when they interact, like when they
Oh,
start
I
to
might have to
share.
leave.
Yeah, leave and come back. Okay, we're just going to take a 2-second break while Lonnie leaves. Yeah, leave. Okay, I'm going to text her.
I'm gonna
I'm
leave
gonna
and come back.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Leave and come back. Yeah. Boy, she's smart. You know what she didn't say was all of her websites she's designed herself, like because she had no money. So she just learned how to do it herself. So her websites for all her businesses are her design. And then she has her Facebook pages. Oh, there she comes. Okay. Add to
I'm back.
stage. Oh, you're back. Can you hear us? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, yay.
Yeah, I
Okay.
don't know what was happening there.
Well, sorry for interrupting you, but I just thought it was getting too flat because I want to as the facilitator or whatever,
Okay.
interact with you a little bit. Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
Not that there was anything wrong with your content. Oh my God, I could listen to you talk till the cows come home.
Jo
Don't get
Joan,
any cows. I was going to say, what kind of pigs did you have, Lonnie?
I had Berkshire pigs.
So what's that? I mean, for our
A
listeners,
Berk
I didn't know what that is.
Okay, so Berkshire pork is probably the most expensive pork that I know of that you can buy in the store. So when you're shopping in the store, Berkshire pork is the highest end that you can
Why?
purchase.
Why?
It's a dark meat and it's very fatty. The Berkshire pork is a lard pig. So back in the day when they were bred for their lard. So you could harvest the tallow and the lard from the pig and have that lard for your whole season until your next raisings, if you did, or it just kept a long time. So for example, on my sows, when I finished them out, they had about 3 to 4 inches of back fat. So under their hide, all over their whole body, they were covered in fat. So that's more
Crazy.
of like the unclean fat, and then they have the fat on the inside of their belly. And the fat on the inside of their belly is can't think of the name right now, but it's the fat that you would use for like face creams, for baking. It was really rich, so you can
Oh,
make the pastries out of that. Whereas the exterior fat and other fat was used for like cooking, frying,
Oh, and
Other
did you
items.
make fat, Lonnie?
Oh yeah, we ground up like 70 pounds. Poor Curtis was like, "Oh my God, as if your family likes to do this stuff." He was just totally. Dad was in the kitchen, the kids were in the kitchen, my
I
brother
was
was
in
in
the
the kitchen. We were grinding it up into small pieces, and then we put all the fat into a pot, and I boiled it with water. And then after that, we let it cool, and then so it separated, and then we took it out, and then I melted it again, and then I put it into shape. And I put that into jars and gave it away to family and friends and used it to make popcorn. And yeah, so it was just a really great experience. And that chapter's closed right now, but we're revamping and we're going to reopen that bigger and better. And that's just one of my ventures. But
Awesome.
I'm just going to quickly add here. I've also started Jack and Co Consulting, which helps people start businesses, manage their business back end, whether it's websites, emails, GST, PST, workers' comp, learning how to bookkeep. Basically, I don't mean it in the way that I'm going to say it, but it's like the back end hand holding of businesses that I don't feel like regular places would necessarily offer, or people would feel comfortable asking for the support that way. Like, no question is a dumb question. So I'm that person, and I understand that some people want to learn how to do it themselves, and I can appreciate that. Starting out from nothing and not having a lot of money to always pay the professional to do all of your stuff. Totally get that. And then I also have Jack and Co Apparel, which we just are soft launching now. I haven't really advertised for it now, but the sweater that I'm wearing, it's probably backwards for you guys, ladies.
I think we all love that. No, it's not.
But if you can't read it, like, it says land acknowledgement, and then below that, good start, just words. Because to me, the land acknowledgement is great that people are acknowledging that it's our traditional territories, but there's nothing happening beyond those words until CRA or the government says, Lonnie, when you're working in Treaty 1 territory, you're working tax-free. It doesn't really matter to me. So, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm ready for what you guys want to contribute to my shares.
Awesome. So I'm just going to go in the order I see people. So Roxanne, would you like to unmute?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Thanks, Lonnie. That was so informative. And I had some questions and ideas and suggestions, and then you touched on that as well. I just want to say the pork I got from you was the best I have ever tasted.
Oh.
And I had stopped buying pork for about 10 years just because I didn't trust it. I didn't trust the source. To me, it all tasted the same and almost like chicken. So I just stopped buying it. I just didn't have, it was not in my menu anywhere. And so when I saw your offer and availability, I jumped on it because I know, you know, directly from the farmers is the best you can get. And for while I was in Winnipeg, prior to moving to Dauphin 5 years ago, I had no source to get pork. So I just stopped buying it. And same with eggs. I found a local farmer here, and I told Joan I'm moving home Sunday, actually. Anyway, and I found 2 locals over there. I was going to say, with your egg and chicken, is there a way we can, or you can pass that knowledge and information on to our youth and our students? But then you talked about the land learning with Lonnie. I don't know if, and I got a friend I'm going to check with, because that's what I was thinking. We need our youth to know this. And we also, it's not a big expense to set it up. Why can't 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 or 12 families in Barrens or anywhere else have chickens? Right, you know, like right there, because right now we know everybody is struggling to pay bills, and it's only going to get worse. And I always talk about and think about and look into food security. I'm pro hunter. My family are hunters, and I buy very little meat because I'm fortunate in that my son and daughter-in-law are avid hunters and fishermen, and my grandsons are learning those skills. So they'll have those skills. And so I don't eat a lot of store-bought meat, thank God. And I'm not a gardener. I do not have a green thumb, but I'm willing to trade because and barter because I have other skills. And I'm a firm believer in that we all come in with our gifts and let's use them. And my brother always says, "Oh, you bought that plant to kill it," because I just don't have a green thumb. And I wish I did, but I don't. And I admit that, I accept that, and I admire people who have it. My daughter-in-law plants a garden every year. My grandsons are learning that, and I happily trade with them. Of course, they're trying to just give me the food, but I just say, no, like, this to me is valuable. And it's something that we need to pass on. And so, and not to feel bad, I wanted to say to you about colonialist farming. Our people have always taken and adapted whatever tools and improvements we needed or wanted. An example I think of is there's people, including my sister, who does beautiful quill work. But when the beads came on the scene, our women took those beads and used them, for in their apparel and in their designs. And so we've always adopted and adapted whatever we could,
I love that.
get our hands on. And so, there's a paper which I'm going to have to try and find, because right now Cows and Plows is happening in Manitoba. All kinds of misinformation is out there. Derek keeps trying. People would rather believe some conspiracy, but and like Saskatchewan adopted farming, and they were very, very successful. And it was one of the papers I studied at U of M when I was doing my degree. And I can't remember the name of it. And unfortunately, the professor who I got to be friends with passed away, so I can't even ask him. I'll have to go digging some more. But anyway, Saskatchewan First Nations adopted and had their plows and implements that the government gave them, and did very, very well as farmers. And so well that they outsold the settlers. And so the settlers went complaining to the government. So the government then forbid or passed a law that First Nations could not sell their produce. So, okay, fine. So what they did is they found a friend or someone off reserve who would sell for them. The Canadian government then passed a law saying nobody could sell for them. So basically they just, shut them down, cut them off. So don't feel bad. We've always taken and farmed and did really well. and took what was there and adapted it and adopted it. So that's what I wanted to talk. Congratulations on buying yourself flowers. I think Miley Cyrus just won an award on that song. And
I did it first.
What's that?
I did it first.
Yeah. And but if there's funding, and I'm actually going to talk to a friend of mine because she worked or still works for the government, the provincial government in agriculture, and there's all kinds of money available for people doing gardening and food security, basically. So I'm going to get in touch with her and find out, because I would go to my community and I say, you know what, send 6 or a dozen students to land learning with Lonnie, pay for it, do whatever we need to pay for it, bring them home and let them start chicken coops, and because like you said, it's nothing fancy, and I did consider starting with a few chickens when I move home, because I can't grow anything. But then I thought I might kill the chickens. So
if you lay them long, they'll eat you.
So I'll have to think about that one. But I also know 2 local people who provide farm eggs. So, because like I said, I quit buying eggs as well until I could get my hands on farm eggs. So that's what I wanted to share. Thank you for being our guest. I so appreciated hearing what you had to share.
Awesome. Okay, Charm.
Good morning. Well, Lonnie, thank you for that wonderful talk. There was so much there. But before I say anything, I just want to say I think Lonnie's land learning will be good prep for the Nakana, the Nakana learning. We'll send her to Lonnie, then we'll send her to Joni up in the bush. They can watch the bears in the river. Anyway, yeah, that could be a whole summer program, right?
Mhm.
Lonnie, with Lonnie, and then with Joan. It's just like they'll have we could do international tours, and what the hell? Anyway, yeah, no, and there's so many things that come to my mind. I'm gonna try and get through these things, but the first thing you talked about that tweaked me when you were talking about the farming today and the tools that we use today, and the fact that, I mean, some people, like our people, I mean, they were very nomadic. They weren't farmers. They were stuck on land, and some of them learned to farm, but that wasn't the culture. They hunted and fished and picked berries and stuff like that. They didn't really farm. But anyway, this is an interesting topic about tools and culture. That
Yes.
just because the guy on the ice now has a skidoo, I mean, does that mean that he's not the same cultural icon that he was before he had a goddamn skidoo? No, he's
Yeah.
still the cultural icon, and I think that's a really interesting misnomer that comes up that's used against the people who live their life, whatever their life is. And I think I just was thinking of that topic, which is we could have a
Mhm.
whole discussion just on that, but we won't go there. I just thought I'd earmark that for some later date. Another thing that you talked about, you mentioned, which I think is really important, is you were talking about the old ways of how you would give your shirt, you would give your last pair of socks, you would give whatever to the people, and that's a cultural that's part of the culture, historically. And I talk a lot about culture clash and how, I've worked with elders, and now they're living on the reserve, maybe somewhere around Vancouver or whatever, and their kids come and maybe live there, and they're eating their food, and they're not contributing, and then they get into a real problem because they come from a culture they would never throw out their children.
No.
They just would not do that. They will not do it because they come from an era of reciprocity. And what
Mhm.
happens is the era of reciprocity in the modern day, especially in the urban setting, it happens on all the reserves, but it definitely is really blatant in the urban setting, that the reciprocity somehow that has been lost. And so you have the elders still doing what elders always did, which is they come from a culture of everybody contributes, everybody's giving, everybody's helping everybody to grow, and it's a non-monetary system. Like you're saying, we still need money, but the old system was not one where we depended on money. We depended on the hunters. We depended on the berry pickers. We depended on the grandmas to pass on the language and the culture. Everybody had a job to do. The medicine man had his job. Everybody had a job to do, and everybody did it. And that was how the society sustained themselves for thousands and thousands of years. And then they come into the modern culture where people have just kind of lost track. My uncle always says, that the connection between the youth and the elders has largely been broken, which was the colonial agenda to do that. And that's had a real impact because the elders are still living the way that they grew up from their grandparents, and their parents. They're living that way of life, and now they're in this generation where these kids are all swooped up by this, Western society and every man for himself and the Protestant ethic, and it's just a complete culture clash. And a lot of times they don't even understand what's going on.
Yeah.
Like I had a conversation with a client about how, her daughter was coming and they would eat food and do things at the house and then take off. And she was really having a problem with that because she's got little kids and they're keeping the little kids awake, and then she hasn't got food for the kids. And I said to her, I said, I asked her 2 questions, which were really important. I said, first of all, what would your elders say to you? And she said, well, my elders would tell me to make sure that my kids have food, number one. And I said, and what would it take? Like, if she's coming to your house and she's eating your food, like, what would it take for that to be okay for you? Because you want to feed her. You don't want her to not have food. I know that. I understand that. But what would it take? And she said, well, if she actually looked after the kids so I didn't have to pay a babysitter while I went to get the groceries. Or maybe she paid for the cab, while I went to get the groceries. Like if she did the dishes, or certain things, like if she was doing this, and this, then it would be fine. And she was able to have this conversation with her daughter and sort out a lot of the problems that they had, just because she sort of like, I guess by asking her that question, she was able to kind of like get through her own culture clash and figure out a way to work things out with her daughter, which worked out really well for her. So, that issue of culture clash is really, really interesting in terms of the kind of conflicts that we see intergenerationally in families today. So I was just thinking about that. And then the food systems, when you were talking about food systems, so, I think about, you're talking about food waste, you're talking about food system, you're talking about sustainability, and where my head goes with that is that food systems have been infiltrated by pharma and the
oh God, yeah,
what do you call it? This money making society thing, like they're. So we've got tons of food. We've got tons of food in the store that's in boxes that's not even real. I always say, if you want real food, shop on the outside aisle where the meat and the vegetables and the fruit and stuff are. Like, don't even go down the aisles. Just shop in the, around, because always the meat, the dairy, the fish, the stuff is always on the outside aisle. So, but the thing is, when we understand how the food system is being infiltrated and what's actually going on, like globally, I think Becky would probably know about this, that globally, there's an attack on farms and farming and food, like genuine food. The Amish in the US, they're attacking the Amish. They're trying to stop the Amish from being able to sell. Like the Amish, they're a self-sustaining society, but they do sell some of their produce and some of their, I guess maybe some of their meat, I don't know, their eggs, things like that, to help them, for some things that they have to buy. But generally they're self-sustaining, and they are attacking the Amish now. And they don't want them to be able to sell food unless it's approved by them, which means that the food is going to have certain things done to it in order for them to approve them selling it. So there's this huge infiltration, which has to do with control and money and all this kind of stuff, which really gets in the way. But, this idea that, land learning with Lonnie, I think is critical, because what's happening is we also live in a culture where technology is stealing all of the skills and knowledge that the younger generation is going to have to get through all the shit that's going on right now, and that's going to be going on in the future. And food security is going to be a super huge issue. And if people don't know how to grow some goddamn carrots and potatoes and lettuce, and if nothing else, if they don't know where to find berries or what kind of foods they can eat if they're out in the bush, like if they don't know these things, this is going to be a really big problem. People need to know. We need to pass this stuff on. Like, this is really critical for survival of the human race as a whole. That's a big issue. So the necessity of skills can't be understated. So this Land Learning with Lonnie is such an important program, as is Joan's program, up in the Nakanow. These are really, really, really important things. And the other thing is that I thought you could make a T-shirt for this, Lonnie. This idea that, this is about lifestyle. Like, I actually grew up on a chicken farm. So I lived on a chicken farm from when I was 6 till 12. So, and we had a huge garden. We had a garden that was bigger than our house. And, we did a lot of, my mother was a single mother. She was poor or whatever. And she had 4 kids. And so, we did a lot of canning. We did a lot of berry picking, a lot of weeding, all these kinds of things, just to be able, a lot of cleaning out a dirty old chicken pen, and my brother's chasing around chickens after they killed them, and, plucking them. And I mean, all the stuff you do out there. But the thing is, this lifestyle, like, I'm really grateful for the lifestyle for a couple of reasons. One of the reasons is that I did not grow up eating garbage food. I grew up eating vegetables and fruit and, chickens and, like real food. And this is a lifestyle thing, that I grew up with. Like, I never had pop. I never had, sugar pops and, whatever kind of garbage they sell nowadays, and they call it food, which is not food. We know it's not food. But I thought maybe we need a T-shirt called "Gardens, Not Garbage Food," You know what I mean? Like that would be a good T-shirt. You know what I mean? And that's really about lifestyle, and that's really about sustaining mankind, really. And I think this is such a critical. The whole food thing is such a critical thing right now. And then I talked about attacking the Amish as well. So I mean, the big thing, the big important thing, like if people, I don't know if people really know, like to the extent that they're attacking farmers around the world. You have to get off Canadian mainstream media and go on to places like Yandex and other sites, and you can find out like they're attacking farmers all over the world. If you look at India, when they did it in India, this was a huge thing. That actually did get out into mainstream news, the way they were attacking the Indian farmers. But it's going on everywhere, all through Europe right now. The farmers are in the cities with their tractors. They're dumping, you know, shit literally onto the municipalities, onto their government offices and on their properties and everything else, because they're using the bullshit excuse that CO2, we have to cut CO2 and cows fart too much, and you know, we got to get rid of farmers. They're basically trying to steal all the land and using this nonsense excuse about CO2. And people don't really realize how the attack on food right now, like they don't really realize like how much of an issue this is right now. I know Becky knows all about this. She knows what's going on. But you know, this is a huge issue, and people really need to get conscious and need to understand globally what's going on to the food, to the whole world of food. And there's a woman you can watch. She's an Indian woman. Her name is Vandana Shiva. If you really want to know what's going on globally around food, go listen to Vandana Shiva. And you know, like I said, go look at what's happening in all these European countries. In Paris, the people have been on the street for years. In Germany and Norway and Italy, the farmers all over Europe are literally in the streets, blocking the streets, you know, because the government is attacking the farmers. In Norway, I think it was Norway or whatever, they tried to like shut down 30% of the farms. And Norway is a huge producer worldwide of food. And they're doing this to a lot of different countries. So, you know, globally, people need to really wake up to what's going on globally to our food supply. And like I say, what you're doing is so important, because no matter what happens in the future, if we don't know how to grow a potato or how to grow a carrot or how to grow an onion or how to grow some garlic or whatever, we're going to be in big trouble. So you're like, what you're doing is so, so important right now. So anyway, now my little rant, people.
Deadly.
So there's my 2 cents.
Thank you so much, Char. Becky, over to you, girl.
Wow. Gee, I 100% agree with you, ladies. Wow. This is just an amazing discussion. It's so important. Do you have any trouble hearing me?
No, you're good.
It's fine. Okay.
Yeah, we got this.
Great. Well, what a fantastic topic. Like, yeah, as I was saying, I wanted to just go to the Farmland Forum Trust, because the farmers here in Ontario are looking at land trusts to help preserve some, you know, very good farmland, and there's a lot of it here in Ontario. But the pressure from the both levels of government, provincial and federal, to make land available for housing development, like crazy here, and so they have a lot of concerns about what's happening. You know, it seems like our provincial guy Ford, he had this scheme going where he was using this tool that they have at the municipal or provincial level called MZO or something, Minister Zoning Order, which is meant for like an emergency situation. Like if you need to change a regime in an emergency or something like that. Well, what he was doing was using those and like appropriating big pieces of farmland, and then it was found out he was just making them available to his rich developer buddies who are going to build these neighborhoods full of McMansions. And here, you know, we've got tent cities everywhere, all kinds of insecurity and instability in society, and he's still just trying to. Anyway, it was interesting to listen to. It was like, wow. And I told him about what we're trying to do with Manoa Key, and how we had it in our charter that housing and food security go along with conservation as far as we're concerned, because we're an endangered species here. It's First Nation people. And we need options, and especially for our young people, like Charm was saying, like we need to connect them back to the land in some way. So they have the skills, so they have the ability to pick up tools and use them and learn how to do these things. So I was appealing to them that, we're not going to take up a ton of space, but give us some. And being farmers, maybe we can work things out where we can help you. It might turn out to be that because they were saying, like, just for the ordinary farmer to try and keep up with the changes that the government's mandating is crazy, and it's taken up all their time. They don't know what does this mean? How do I do this? And then more comes at them, and it seems like the government's just trying to really destabilize them, just like Charm was saying, and so they're saying enough's enough, and they're looking at the land trust model, and us in particular, I think, because I mean, if you look at what the UNDRIP says, I feel like if we use it right, it's a fence of protection for those lands that we can acquire, right? Otherwise, it's actually a tool to destabilize us and make us look make us the patsy for what the UN and all the rest of that whole agenda wants to accomplish. So it's all about how do we use that thing right. So I was saying, like, we can help each other here, we can be partners, but we need some things that you've got, which is farming operation knowledge, and we need that to go to our young kids. So talk about things like, if you've ever seen the Woofer program, it used to be an international program, and Canada had a lot of participants. And the good thing about that was you get room and board if you're a willing worker on a farm. But if we were to design a model for our youth, we could say, okay, go and be a willing worker on a farm. You're going to get knowledge, untold amount of knowledge and a work experience. And then we said to them, all right, if you have plans to go post-secondary or back to school in September, then you'll get your payout if you do the whole program. I mean, in the middle, you could get some fun money now and then, but bank up your hours, bank up your pay, and then just before school, you receive your money so you're able to get your school stuff, your clothing, your whatever. So that's us using our minds to figure out what's the best way to take advantage of this here situation, So I want to offer that. And I want to say, like, since I became like pretty much carnivore, I had bacon and eggs and butter and cheese for breakfast yesterday before I went on the farm. And I made sure to thank those farmers, for growing that food for me. And I had some other, I had a board member and her friend. He's a Indigenous educator kind of guy. And that really impressed him. And he was telling the other participants in our breakout room, he was saying, that's what it's all about. What Becky said is like being grateful. Be grateful for all of the things you've got. And I think Western society, just got bloated like something where they take everything for granted and feel entitled to be this wealthy, and it's sad to have to remind them again and again, even with the land acknowledgements. And that's one thing it's good for, is that I always point out, you completely displaced us. We ended up with 0.02% of our former freedom lands, you might say, on which to do things, and we can't do things. Our population, as opposed to your white settler population, which is on the downward slope, ours continues to go up, and that's an exponential thing. Like, we're far from the top of that bell curve just yet. Right? Looks like Roxanne wants something to say there, really. If
I know it's my turn next. It's my turn.
Okay. Well, anyway, I support community supported agriculture. I get a meat order from farms, so I know I'm getting better meat. And I go through a lot of eggs on this diet. Could be 6 to 8 eggs a day. you know.
Hmm.
Love my butter. I'm thinking about, geez, I think I should get myself a dairy cow. I'd learn to make butter, because if it disappears off the supermarket shelves, that will be a sad day for me, you know. But other than that, man, there's a lot of wisdom in this room. And Lonnie, all the power to you, girl. Really proud of you. I watched that spring when you had that flood in your pictures, and I was like, oh my God, I hope I make it. Yeah, it was really, really something to see you struggle through all that and raise your kids too.
Mm.
Way to go, woman.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks, Becky. Okay, my turn. Oh my God, I make notes when people are sharing so that I can like remember. This is going to be a big ramble here. I wanted to tell a story about Lonnie. So we've been going down there. We come off the river and then we go to Manitoba to help Lonnie. The whole family goes. We go, even Shirley and Steve come sometimes. We go and help her with whatever she's doing on the farm over there. And invade poor Curtis's family are just not used to our culture. Like with us Indigenous people, you invite one person and 16 show up. It's like that's just how it goes. Anyway, we go over there and I learned so much. Like I found such grace and peace in washing eggs, picking them and washing them. I'd never had that experience personally before. And at first I didn't like it. I complained lots and loudly, but as things went on and I got in the zone of it, it became like a sacred thing. It was really sacred, even though it was still stinky and shitty and loud and all those other things were still there. I really got some reverence for those eggs. So people who ate the eggs that we washed, they're eating the love too, eh? That's what's going into the food. So I wanted to tell a story. So we were there, and Brian always does more than I do physically. And I was in the camper resting already, and he came and he said, Lonnie wants a blanket. This was when she got all those pigs and they're having babies left and right. I said, what does she want a blanket for? He said, I don't know. She just told me to go get a blanket. So I said, okay. So I said, well, I don't really know what she's going to do with it. So I was thinking to myself, I got to send one that could be washed. So I sent a thinner blanket, and it was still a warmer sleeping bag, but it was thin. And I sent it out to her with her dad. And then after she came back, I said, what the hell did you want a blanket for at the pig pens, Oh, well, Mom, she said, after you have a baby, she said, you get that cold feeling after your baby's born and you're shivering and you're just like all that energy, is dissipating and you're just shivering. And I said, yeah, what does that have to do with pigs? And she said, well, that's what happens to pigs too. And she said, this one mom pig couldn't warm up. So I laid down beside her with the blanket and I hugged her and rubbed her till she warmed up, and it still makes me cry. Like, who the fuck loves things so much that they would lie down in pig shit and where a pig just had babies? Well, my girl does. And I'm so proud of you, Lonnie. Like, man, I just lift my hands up to you. Like, I love everything. I love life. I love all forms of life. I don't know if I could lie down with a pig and comfort that pig. So maybe, you ended up eating that pig, Roxanne. So the other thing Lonnie didn't share is that she grew up hunting with her father and me, and I always took care of base camp, and Brian would go hunt. And, Lonnie grew up in that culture. And I was not surprised the first time she sent me a picture when she says how did you put it? You had fancy words that didn't describe what you were doing when they kill the pigs, butcher the pigs or would kill the pigs or whatever. They actually did that themselves. And there's my daughter, skinning and gutting and skinning pigs, and they're hanging up, and because that's what you do with moose, So she actually did that with all those pigs, and that's really something, and for the land living with land learning with Lonnie, that's all a part of it, all a part of the piece that people would young whoever would get to learn. So those are the pig stories I wanted to share. The other pig story I have is around the loop program, and and her brother Henry, who has worked 3 years without pay, just for cigarettes and food, The man is amazing and he needs a wife. Please. He's so kind and so traditional and doesn't complain, like doesn't works hours. And, he'll complain about every 10 days or so, but, that's nothing. And anyways, he would always be unloading the big trailer full of stuff from the loop and sorting it. And, I did some of that too when we were there. And I noticed, Lonnie, I said, lots of this food is organic, because people won't pay the price for the organic food. And then the expiry date comes and then they throw it out. And it's expired food is still good. Some of it, I mean, whatever. We grew up eating old bread. It's so all of these chickens and pigs mostly ate organic food. It was pretty cool. I was like, man, these are styling pigs. And then I'm jumping around, but the whole endangered, when Becky said we're an endangered species, I said that 30 years ago. Lonnie heard me say that probably, that we are endangered species. And the environmentalists that we worked with up here in Tlingit country to protect the territory from a road, I said to them, you need to make a t-shirt that has a salmon, Brian Jack's face, and a grizzly bear. That's the t-shirt. So now you have a t-shirt company. You need to make that endangered species and put a picture of a salmon, picture of your dad, and picture of a grizzly bear, because he's very indigenous looking, and that would be a really good shirt. I also had some thoughts around farming in the context of harvesting our food and medicine. Like, I think us as indigenous people, we weren't farmers. I think the Mohawk and people along the area where the farming did naturally happen, they were farmers. They had they were the ones that had tobacco. They were the ones that had a squash. Like, a lot of the things people use today globally don't even realize that it's sourced in Mohawk country. So some of our people did farm. But then I started thinking just now, listening to the discussion around, when you go picking wike, like there's Tobasanakottiban, Premier Wab Canoe's dad was telling me a story about when he was out picking wike, that he said, I was trying to talk to Diane, was with me, his daughter, she's a lawyer as well, and her a man she was with, and well, her boyfriend at the time, and I said I couldn't get their attention, and I said, what were you trying to get their attention about? And he said, I was trying to I wanted Diane to hear me sing the songs to call the dragonflies. Okay, I'm like, Miss, decolonizing Indian here. And I said, okay, I don't know why you would wanting to be calling the dragonflies while you're picking wike. And he said, well, because they eat the mosquitoes. He said, so there, and then there are other songs that wake up the medicine. And he said, if you sing the ceremonial songs that wake up the medicine, then the wike is very powerful, very powerful. And I said, well, what happens? Because I'm curious. I said, what happens if you don't sing the song? He says, just like, Tylenol, an extra strength Tylenol, like it's, it's like normal. It's like, it's, average. And the medicine, when you get medicine from people like wike, I'm using as an example, which is people call rat fruit in English, you get it, and some of it is really, whoa, and probably the person knew to sing the songs to wake up the spirit of that plant, So there's a whole world of farming, quote unquote, that our people have always done, always done. And where you only take, and farming principles, like you only take what you need. Those are our hunting principles too, our hunting law and our farming law. You don't take all the wike, you don't take all of anything. You just take what you're going to use, and that whole idea of reciprocity, in particular, applies to our land relationship. At the Nakana, we only, we don't let like some kids really love to fish, like they just could stand down at the river all day. But the law is, we only eat what we kill. And if you kill it, you've got to clean it. And so it's usual that it's my lived experience that somebody who really likes fishing doesn't necessarily like cleaning the fish. Well, I don't want to clean it. Well, then you've got to get in relationship with somebody else here at camp and make a deal, That's the reciprocity again. It's not that you're wrong for not wanting to clean the fish. You've got to be in a relationship. Other people are really good at minding the smokehouse, and that's all they want to do is go in there and check the fire and turn the fish or turn the moose meat or whatever. So you work cooperatively, and that reciprocity is in the entire experience. And it's the same thing in the kind of farm that you had there, Lonnie. So I wanted to just say that about that. I don't know. And then I guess this would be a good time to make my comment. Derek's my good friend and brother. And I say that because I've ridden my Harley behind him at least 30,000 kilometers in all weather conditions, in all types of times of day, because the damn guy doesn't know when to stop at sundown. It's like, just one, 2 more, next town. Oh, crazy. I've ridden through we shouldn't ride in the dark, but I have. And so we're all gaming. And so I know in that intense experience, how people behave in intense experiences, to me anyway, shows you who they really are, who they really are at their core. Because my mom taught me, it's easy to be someone's friend when everything is going good. It's what you do in your friendship when it's going bad. That also applies to marriage. Hashtag follow me for more marriage advice. Third time lucky. So in relation to the cows and plows, my view as a lawyer is that all that's happening there is that the treaty is finally being implemented in that context. That's it. That's it. And in any negotiation, it's a deal where you say, okay, I'm taking, and even in reciprocity, I'm taking this for that. Okay, the right to the cows and plows was there, was there. And we're going to take this in 2024 for that right from 1876. And this is the calculated value of it. And we're not stupid. We can all read and write now. So that's all that's happening. And as Chief Derek has said, this has nothing to do with the treaty right to farming. The treaty right to farming exists in my daughter, Lonnie, who's farming. And she's a descendant of Treaty 5. And she's farming. That's where it exists. It exists in the action, in the exercise of our right. That's where our rights exist. In our hearts and our minds, our spirits, and in the exercise of that. It's good. Some people just talk about it because, knowledge is important. But I don't think knowledge becomes wisdom without action. Knowledge turns into wisdom because of action, lived experience. Yeah. Yeah, and that land acknowledgement shirt, when she first contacted me about the shirt, she just wanted to say land acknowledgements, just words. I said, okay, you're my daughter. That's so straight. I think you have to let the white people know that they've made a good start. So I added the good start. Let's just give a fresh Bannock slap there, not a 2-week-old Bannock slap. I wanted to say something about the woofer program. We know about the woofer program here in Atlan because Stephen Badwar and his wife, whose name just escaped my mind right now, but Stephen has been a squatter out at the Warm Springs for like 25 years, homesteading at the Warm Springs here in Atlan, and used the woofer program, and that's how we learned about it. And we've met people from all over the world that have come to work with Stephen and Alyssa and his wife for, I don't know what the period of time is, but they don't get paid. They make an agreement that they work for 5 hours a day for, I think I'm making this up, like 3 or 4 days a week. And then the rest of the time they're free to explore the land and all that. And then they gain all that knowledge of the homestead out at Warm Springs. I wanted to say that in the context of reciprocity that Charm brought up, that we're struggling with entitlement has infiltrated our community for whatever reasons. That's a whole nother show. But at the Nakana Call just last week, I was told that there's concern about supporting the Nakana Call financially because Joan makes everyone work too hard. I'm like, oh my God, please. Obviously, the critic either has not lived out in the bush because everyone works, as soon as you can walk, you start gathering the kindling, everybody works, and that's how it goes. Or they are in their heal. I'll be nice about it. Like in their healing journey, they're not at a place where they can do any work, and they want to go to a treatment center where somebody brings you, cooks 3 meals a day for you and washes your sheets and whatever, like that kind of thing. That's not what we're doing. That's not what we're doing at all. It's very hard, and everybody works, and so I struggle with that, because I was talking to Gatica, one of my Tlingit nieces, about it 2 days ago, and she said, Auntie, that's okay. You just have to be even more clear with all your participants before they come that they are going to work. And if they don't want to work, they shouldn't come. That's all, And she said in the language program that they have at COTS, COTTS, if you want to Google it, they have the same struggle, because it's going to be very, very hard to actually learn your language to the point that you're fluent. You have to meet certain benchmarks to continue. That's hard. It's not a gravy train, or it's not a joyride. It's not a trip to the Red River X, it's freaking hard and worth it. Okay, last thing. Preppers. The other day, Shirley, my other daughter, I have another daughter too, but my daughter Shirley was saying, like, she was talking about preppers, and I said, well, what's that? And she said, well, that's people who are preparing for, like, what Charm has talked about, we've all talked about, Becky's talked about, like, like, if this crash comes, and what are we gonna do? We don't know how to do anything. We better start getting ready. And so they start getting ready. And she's like, I know you're probably not going to like me talking like that, and it's, cynical and, doomsday and whatever. And I said, just let me interrupt you, Shirley. What the hell do you think we're doing at the Nakana call? And I said, you're a prepper because your dad and I raised you to be a prepper. That's what we're doing. You know how to do what's necessary. I said, and to be honest, my concern right now is that we have enough ammunition, or we need to get those, what are those fancy bow things that I can't think of them, but whatever, we need to get those and have some of those downriver, so that we can still get moose and harvest, because we don't use bow and arrows anymore, and so, yeah. Okay, that's mine. And then we're gonna go over, but so what? Let's let Lonnie do some closing comments, and let's just each do some fast closing comments again, and then we'll finish. Go ahead, Lonnie.
Okay, so there's a lot. I mean, I could go on all day about this stuff because I love it. It's my passion, farming and food. But I wanted to add into this conversation for the record, and hopefully someone will hear this and maybe do something about it, like Chief Neepanak. I'm not going to get there yet, but the issue that I have, like Roxanne, you had said that there's organizations or grants or things like that for people to start these programs. But as I joked the other day, I said, I really got to get my conference Indian on, meet some people, shake some hands. But I'm here working because I got to pay my bills, So I feel like I'm not good at grant writing or making those connections or things like that. So that's where my disconnect happens, because everything that we've done to date has been on money that Curtis and I have earned, or my parents have contributed, or our sales have contributed to, but we have not received any grants or any real loans or anything like that. So we've built our farm up from the bottom as a first generation farm. And I feel like we're the only one in Manitoba doing that, because there isn't many first generation farmers starting out for profit that I've ever met. There's hobby farmers and small farmers supplying for themselves, or just that kind of a scale. But what I wanted to add most importantly is what I feel is missing. I don't know what the right legal term is, but for those of you that aren't familiar with large industrial farming, there's the quota system. So, for example, each individual in Manitoba, I believe, is only allowed 300 chickens per property per person. So I could legally not raise more than 300 birds for consumption, or have more than, I think it's 300 layers or something. I don't know what the actual numbers are, but they're around that. So that's the way that the government keeps you in check and not to destabilize the food egg industry. So with the cows and plows settlement, had I had started a farm in my family a couple hundred years ago, I would be at the same level as the farms nowadays who were part of the quota system when it was implemented. So people purchase quota. I didn't do the math or the research yet, but like 10 years ago, milk quota, because you have to have a quota for milk as well. Dairy farmers cannot sell milk if they are in the quota system to consumers legally. They will possibly lose their quota or get fined a lot. So any extra milk that farmers have in their dairy farms, they have to dump if they have met their quota supply for that week or that day or that month. I don't know whenever their pickup is, they have to dump it. They just dump it on the ground, goes to the garbage. They feed their pigs or whatever. I don't know. Each farm's different. But I think 10 years ago, 1 kilogram of milk quota was $38,000. So if you wanted to produce 1 kilogram of milk that was sold into the Canadian dairy system, it was like $38,000. I don't know what it is today, but same goes for chicken quota, milk quota, turkey quota. So let's say today I wanted to supply Manitoba First Nations chickens, turkeys, and eggs. I couldn't do it, so like, why isn't there a space for Indigenous people to be included in that system because they were disconnected so much? Like, why can't each First Nation be allotted quota, and they can either sell it or they could use it or distribute to their members or lend it to other First Nations, or let Klager Farms buy or rent or fulfill, like that has been missed. So we can't even participate without millions of dollars of investment in just quota, just to buy the quota, not to mention the buildings or the facilities to produce food for ourselves and our people. And I never hear that talked about. So I just wanted to say that. And then I also wanted to include that the grain system is very controlled. Like there's a Canadian Wheat Board in Canada. Well, Canadian Wheat Board, I don't know how far that branches, but for example, when we, like Curtis and I, grow grain. So this last year we had just under 300 acres of grain, and it's not a lot because the farmers around us are doing 3, 4, 5, 10,000 acres of grain. So we're plugging away, rejuvenating old pastures that nobody wants. And then people come and offer the owners money after we've done all the work. And so that's a battle that we fight because we can't afford to buy all the land that we need to grow. But the granary that we sell the grain to didn't take a lot of our grain this year because they had a surplus of grain. And so we had a full truckload of grain to be taken in, and it came off late with high moisture. And we don't have those huge grain bins with big fans and everything to dry all the grain. So they said, we have enough grain with high moisture from all the big farmers, because they come and bring in 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 600,000, millions of dollars worth of grain. So they don't care about me bringing in my 1,000 bushels, So they dinked us around for a couple of weeks. And then after that couple of weeks went by, our grain spoiled. So we still had insurance, which paid up to 70%, but then we lose any profit that we would have had. So it's great to recover costs, but I think that's another way that the government's controlling the food industry by not allowing maybe shipments or even putting the pressure on the granaries who take in the grain. So it would be nice if there was another private sector that took in grains for sale to be sold. Those are the two things that I wanted to add. But
thank you.
I wish somebody would take the quota system and take it to the next level.
And this is your opportunity to say goodbye or whatever.
Okay. Goodbye. Thank you all for listening and participating and sharing your comments. And this is my passion, and my kids are getting older, and we're growing our farm, and we're branching out into commercial logging. So we're going to be bringing that availability to communities. We have a full logging setup to fall, skid, haul, and process wood on a commercial level. So that is part of the security system. And I was just talking to the chief yesterday at the event that I went to last night, and I said, how many homes in your, sorry, I'm not done yet. I said, how many homes in your community are burning wood?
And he said, well, not very many, because they've been converted to furnaces for the CMHC insurance. And then
Yeah.
I said, because my partner and I owned a heating and ventilation business for 10 years. And he's like, well, all of our homes are molding and our 50-year-old homes are not molding, but the new ones are molding. And I said, I mean this with all due respect, but the homes that are being built are not being built for 15 people. They're being built for 3. So the excess moisture that are in these homes are not meant for this type of capacity in the building. And the majority of the homes do not get installed with HRVs or air conditioners. So the air conditioners reduce the moisture in the home, and the HRV circulate the air. So that's not happening. Whereas the wood stoves back in the day would dry up the house really good. But back, I said to him, with CMHC, if you get wood stoves installed wet seal certified, you can still have your home insurance with that. So it's just the initial investment of installing it certified to code for CMHC, even though it's on reserve. It's all silly. But back to the wood, if people had control of their heat source, they wouldn't be so reliant on hydro systems to keep their homes heated. Like a lot of people I've seen on Facebook are heating their homes with their ovens because the 1 or 2 baseboards isn't enough, but then their hydro bills are 15, $2,000. It's crazy. So why are people who are just scraping by having to pay so much for hydro? You know, so like that's another part of what we're going to be doing, but we're just growing that now. And so we want to go into communities and help people harvest and have wood available to their members. And yeah.
Nice. Amazing. Okay, well, thank you for being our guest. And Roxanne?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Good. I just turned my mic back on. I know a guy, actually I know a woman. So I'm going to talk to her about grant writing because I think land learning with Lonnie is so important. And the quota system, I kind of knew about that. What I do know is I attempted to buy a beef shared with other people because I would no way be able to eat a whole beef. From a friend of mine who owns her own cows, and she can't sell a beef without provincial approval. And I was shocked. I did not know that. And I'm like, what? And she said, yeah, I can't, sorry. And so, that was something I learned about. What concerns me with the other thing that's a threat to Lonnie and people like Lonnie is corporate farming. I'm seeing so much of that in this area here in the parkland. It's unbelievable, like how many farms are being snapped up by corporate farms, and I'm sure Lonnie knows about that as well. And the other thing I just wanted to say in talking about the housing issue, the thing a lot of people don't realize or know, unless it's changed in the last 4 or 5 years, and I have not heard that it has, housing dollars for First Nations has not changed since 1973.
Yeah, it's non-existent.
Yeah, so
yeah,
and so we, I need, like, there's housing crises going on and people are waiting 20 years for a house. Well, because the dollars are not there. Like, they're just not there. So I just wanted to throw that in there and thank Lonnie for joining us at short notice. And it's been a great conversation I enjoyed today. And thank you all. And I've got to leave in about 10 minutes. So I'll leave, you all can continue, but I've got an appointment. And so, yeah, it's just the thing I learned today was knowledge plus action equals wisdom. And I hadn't heard it put like that before. And it's so true. So thanks for that. I think it was Joan who said that.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. So I'm done, and thank you all. I'll hang out for a bit yet.
Okay. Charm. Closing thoughts, darling.
Well, I could probably go on another rant, but I won't. But no, I just want to thank Lonnie for being our guest today and telling us about what she's doing, which is so important. And Well, I mean, I saw an article earlier. I was trying to find it because I saw an article earlier. Right now, the Ontario farmers are in an uproar about, I don't know what's going on, but there's something going on in Ontario with them attacking farmers there. And, I guess, like I said earlier, I mean, I think the thing is that we need to keep farming, like keep it, grassroots farmers need to stay happening and, keep sharing the knowledge and everything else. And, all of those regulations, I mean, all of those, they're just trying to push out the little guy everywhere. It doesn't matter if it's the local grocery store or the farmer or whoever it is. They're trying to get rid of all the little people so that they can totally control it. And, you know, I think, it's kind of something like, I think Becky would kind of agree with me on this. It's like, we have to develop an alternative economy and alternative resources, alternative food production. Like, well, not really alternative, but in the case of food, it's going back to the land and doing that. That's not really an alternative. It's just like bringing back what the necessary things for living. But yeah, so it's just really critical in terms of the idea of food sovereignty and food security. I mean, all of these issues are really, really huge. And I mean, I think, it's hard when you're a farmer and you've got, like you say, you've got bills to pay and all that kind of stuff. It's not just hard to go and try and find money. It's also very hard to try and fight the nonsense that's going on politically and legally, like what they're doing, to attack, farms and people that are actually providing real food. It's very hard to do advocacy and that kind of stuff and try and change policy and laws, when you got chickens to feed or you got pigs to, birth or whatever it is.
To change.
So, yeah. So definitely that, you got to have people that can do that at all, like be addressing the issues on all levels and at every table, at every policy table. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing is finding people that can address those issues and let farmers do what farmers do best, which is farm. So anyway, it's just wonderful to be here and wonderful to participate in today's conversation. So thank you.
Miigwech charm. Becky?
Yeah, I so agree once more. Like, we can honestly say to people of today, whenever we find a platform, we can honestly tell them, the taking away of a people's food source is a weapon of war. And it's what they did to us. Our apocalypse occurred a couple hundred years ago with the imposition of the Indian Act and taking us off of our land and putting us in those, over 600, I call them concentration camps. And the cost of doing that to a people, it involves generations, and there's just no accounting for what it costs in terms of money. Like, they're still paying. And if people don't wake up and see what's happening, they're going to be victim of it, right? And I think it's starting to dawn on. Like, when I was at that forum yesterday, I was really feeling that vibe. Like, these squeezes that they're putting on us are just intolerable. And unfortunately, and I think this needs to be a topic in a future conversation, it used to be basically us and them. There was two colors, our brown skin and their white skin. Now we've become a land of strangers, people we just don't know. And who are they and where do they come from and what are their customs? And you need to know that. I mean, we used to have the diplomatic protocol for strangers coming into our territory, and you'd sit down and get to know them and understand. Like, we have to talk this out. Who are you?
Mm-hmm.
Now they're beginning to occupy all of the public spaces in terms of the commercial spaces. And they don't know us. They don't know our history. They don't know what we've been through. I have a feeling we could find common ground in terms of what colonial pressures have done to other countries as well.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the cases, they're refugees for that reason. And so they're coming here in quite a lot of droves. Let me just be silly about it, but yeah. And it only takes, I think, what they say, missing 9 meals for complete chaos and breakdown to ensue. So, are very, very serious issues, especially when you have little children you're responsible to feed. Our grandmothers knew those feelings very much. So bless you, Lonnie. Keep up the great work. And you too, Joan. Miigwech, I'm glad to see you. I understand you have been restricted in your social outlets for
Yeah,
now.
no, I'm locked out. It's not a restriction. The Facebook went down globally 2 weeks ago or whatever, and apparently there must be millions. I don't know how many. We just can't get back in.
I had to struggle to get back in. I had to try and remember passwords. I had to make new passwords. It was real pain. But yeah, if you're persistent, you might be able to find a way back in. I
Hopefully.
hope so. Yeah.
I just wanted to say, Roxanne, we bought a new plow last year. It's a 9-bottom plow. Not waiting for my cows and plows. So we are going to plow up a large garden this year. So we're going to do I won't necessarily get it planted, but we're going to do a for sale part garden and a you pick part garden, as well as a you rent garden. So if people are green thumb inclined, they can come out to our space and use our land to plant stuff.
Nice. Awesome. Okay, were you done, Becky? We kind of segued there. I just want to make sure. Okay. All right. So I end all the podcasts in the same way. A core thing of Indigenous culture is to not take yourself too seriously. Kego kitchen dazokin. Like, you're not actually all that, Joan Jack.
No Facebook for you.
Yeah, that's it. Facebook famous? Not now. Anyway, I love to laugh and keep things light sometimes because it's pretty heavy. Being alive is heavy. So I want to show these earrings. These are Becky Ann in Winnipeg, and she's on Facebook. And I love her beading. Like, her beading is not uh, uh, very, like, my daughter Amelia's beading is so creative. She's an artist. Like, every piece of earring is a piece of art, like a unique, and I'm sure this is unique too, but it's very traditional, like, not traditional. You see it a lot. But when I wear Becky's earrings, I get stopped, and I keep telling her when I buy, it's your spirit, Becky. It's in the earrings. So she's on Facebook, Becky Ann, and yeah, just tell her I sent you. Thank you for listening, and please share, because I want what's that guy's name there? Joe Rogan, move over. Joe Jack's here. I'm going to end, and then let's say goodbye privately.